The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Do you often find yourself trapped in the cycle of self-doubt and comparison, constantly chasing standards set by society or others? What if the secret to inner peace and confidence lies in embracing who you truly are, imperfections and all? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by external expectations, but Stoic philosophy offers timeless wisdom to help you break free from this cycle. In this video, we'll explore powerful Stoic principles that can help you reframe your mindset and take control of your self-worth. From embracing imperfections to managing the pressure of social comparison, these steps will guide you toward a stronger, more confident version of yourself. Stick with us until the end, and you'll walk away with actionable tools to boost your confidence and self-compassion while learning how to break free from the trap of perfectionism. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more life-changing insights. 1. Building self-worth beyond social standards. In today's world, social media constantly bombards us with unattainable ideals, perfect bodies, flawless lives, and constant success. It's no wonder so many people struggle to feel good about themselves, caught up in the rat race of measuring worth through likes, followers, and material success. Yet, Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, reminds us that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. The Stoics believed that true self-worth comes not from external validation, but from within. They argued that we should not measure ourselves against society's fleeting standards, but instead focus on what we can control: our virtues, our actions, and our inner character. Now imagine you're like many others, scrolling through your social media feed. You see posts showing the perfect life, someone's vacation, a new car, or a picture-perfect family. The pressure builds. You start comparing yourself, feeling inferior, as if you don't measure up. The Stoic perspective offers an entirely different way to approach this moment. Instead of getting caught up in those feelings of inadequacy, imagine you took a deep breath and said, "This doesn't define me. I am enough as I am." That's the first step in building your self-worth beyond social standards, rejecting comparison and external validation. The Stoics were masters at this, teaching us to look inward rather than outward for our sense of value. Instead of measuring your success by how you stack up against others, focus on the qualities that truly matter: your kindness, integrity, persistence, and courage. These are qualities that cannot be taken away by a bad day or an unflattering comment online. What's even more profound is that these Stoic thinkers didn't just advise us to ignore the noise of external expectations. They actively encouraged us to question them. In his writings, Seneca often urged people to reassess societal values, asking whether they truly served their being, or simply fed into the false idea that happiness comes from wealth, fame, or perfection. By choosing to live according to your own principles rather than those of others, you reclaim control over your life. Take a moment and ask yourself, what are the qualities that make me proud of who I am? For many of us, it might be moments of quiet resilience, showing up for others when it's difficult, or working hard to overcome personal obstacles. These are the moments that truly define us, not the superficial markers of success. Let's now talk about something counterintuitive yet incredibly powerful: embracing imperfection. Stoic philosophy doesn't demand perfection. Quite the opposite. It teaches that our imperfections are part of our humanity, not flaws to be hidden or corrected. In fact, our imperfections are what give us the chance to grow, learn, and develop deeper self-compassion. Every time you stumble or face a challenge, you're given a unique opportunity to become stronger, more self-aware, and ultimately more compassionate toward yourself and others. Instead of resenting your imperfections, learn to see them as stepping stones toward a more complete and authentic self. Imagine if, instead of hiding your mistakes or shortcomings, you embraced them fully. Think about the last time you made a mistake. Did you beat yourself up about it, or did you learn something from it? This mindset shift is exactly what Stoicism encourages. Seeing failure not as a setback, but as an essential part of the human experience. Just as Marcus Aurelius often reflected on his own imperfections, he saw them as opportunities for growth. urging himself to always strive to be better, while accepting that perfection was never the goal. Reflecting on your own experiences, ask yourself, how can I embrace my flaws and use them to become a better person? When you start seeing your imperfections as part of your journey, rather than as things to be ashamed of, you'll find a sense of freedom that is difficult to put into words. So, let's take this one step further. When you stop measuring your worth by how you compare to others or by how perfect your life appears to be, you open the door to a deeper sense of peace. The Stoics knew that we can't control what others think of us, but we can control how we think about ourselves. And when we focus on living with purpose and integrity, we stop relying on the fickle validation of others. To close this section, think about this. The next time you're caught in a spiral of comparison or self-doubt, remind yourself of the Stoic principle. What is in my control? Your virtues, your character, your decisions, these are what define you. The rest is noise. So, take a deep breath, center yourself, and focus on building your inner strength, not the facade the world expects you to maintain. 2. Managing social comparison through gratitude. We've all been there, scrolling through social media, catching a glimpse of someone's highlight reel, and suddenly, the nagging thoughts creep in. Why doesn't my life look like that? Whether it's a friend's promotion, someone's perfect vacation, or a colleague's shiny new car, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparison. But here's the thing. Comparison is the thief of joy, as Theodore Roosevelt once put it. It steals our peace of mind, and for what? A fleeting glimpse into someone else's life that probably doesn't even tell the full story. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a life-changing perspective. Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, had a clear approach to comparison. They simply didn't buy into it. Instead, they focused on what they could control. Their thoughts, their actions, and their responses to the world around them. And while that sounds pretty solid, we're left with a question. How do we stop comparing ourselves to others in a world so obsessed with it? Simple. Gratitude. Yes, you heard that right. Gratitude. It may seem a little too easy, but stick with me. Gratitude has the power to shift our focus away from what we don't have and toward what we already do. When you make gratitude a daily practice, you start to realize how much you have to be thankful for. And suddenly, the neighbor's new car doesn't seem so important anymore. Instead of thinking, I'll never be as successful as that, you begin to think, wow, I'm so lucky to have my health, my family, or even a roof over my head. It's like a mental reset button, and best of all, it works immediately. Let's pause and consider this. How often do we really sit back and appreciate what we already have? It's so easy to get caught up in the chase for the next big thing. But gratitude is the antidote to that endless cycle. Stoics like Seneca would argue that we need to retrain our minds to see abundance, not lack. When we focus on gratitude, we stop viewing ourselves as lacking something, and instead we start appreciating what's already present in our lives. Here's a fun way to think about it. Let's say you're looking at someone's perfect vacation photo. They're on a beach, sun-kissed, with a cocktail in hand. And there you are, still in your comfy pajamas at home. Instead of getting frustrated or feeling inferior, why not flip the script? Imagine that you're sitting there sipping your own cocktail, or maybe just coffee, and start listing 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's the comfort of home, the warmth of your bed, or even the freedom of having time to relax. The point is, you've got your own life to appreciate. Now, you might be wondering, what if I'm really struggling though? Can gratitude still help? Absolutely. In fact, gratitude is especially powerful in tough times. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When things aren't going well, gratitude can help you find a new perspective. Maybe you're facing a challenge at work, or you've recently been through a tough breakup. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, take a step back and reflect on what you've learned. How has the struggle helped you grow? What strengths have you discovered within yourself? Here's the kicker. Practicing gratitude regularly isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about transforming your entire mindset. When you choose to focus on the positives, no matter how small they seem, you start to see the world differently. You stop measuring your worth based on how you compare to others, and instead recognize the inherent value in your own life. So here's a thought to leave you with. Could it be that the key to peace is not about achieving more or doing more, but learning to appreciate what we already have? Next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what am I truly grateful for right now? Because in the end, gratitude doesn't just help us survive the comparison game, it helps us win it. And that's a Stoic lesson worth practicing every day. 3. Accept your flaws and turn them into strengths. We all have flaws. It's part of being human, right? But let's be honest for a second. How often do we let our imperfections define us? Maybe it's that you're not as good at public speaking as you'd like, or you tend to overthink things when you should just go with the flow. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing these flaws as weaknesses. But here's where Stoic philosophy can change the game. The Stoics didn't just accept their flaws, they embraced them, turning them into strengths. It's almost like they saw their weaknesses as raw materials to build something better. Sounds a bit like a superpower, doesn't it? Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. He had all the trappings of power. He was an emperor, but he was also deeply aware of his flaws. He wasn't perfect, but he recognized that his imperfections didn't make him less worthy. In fact, he used his weaknesses as a path for growth. Instead of trying to hide them, he turned them into tools for self-improvement. Isn't that the kind of mindset that could change your life? Now, imagine this scenario. You've always struggled with being overly critical of yourself. You look at other people and think, why can't I be as confident as them? You wish you could just turn off that inner critic, but it's always there. Here's the twist. Rather than seeing this self-criticism as a barrier, why not view it as an opportunity to get better? What if your ability to recognize your flaws could actually help you grow? Here's a simple Stoic technique. Reframing. Instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, try saying, I'm learning. Think about it. Every time you face a flaw head-on and choose to work on it, you're not only improving yourself, you're also strengthening your character. Let's say you're terrible at handling criticism. Someone gives you feedback, and you feel like you want to crawl into a hole. Instead of avoiding criticism, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Could this be an opportunity to become a better version of myself? Let's add a little humor here. What if we stopped treating our flaws like the villain in a superhero movie? You know, that guy who's always lurking in the shadows, causing chaos. Instead, we could treat our flaws like a sidekick. Yes, a sidekick. They're not perfect, they mess up, but they help us out in ways we didn't even expect. Imagine having your own flaw as a trusty sidekick, helping you discover new strengths in the process. Who knew your flaws could be this helpful? But of course, it's easier said than done, right? Sometimes when we face our flaws, we can feel overwhelmed. We think, why bother? I'm never going to be good at this. But that's the thing. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. As the Stoics would say, it's not about being perfect, it's about consistently improving. Isn't the pursuit of improvement better than the pursuit of perfection? When we stop fighting our imperfections and instead focus on how to improve, we start to change our relationship with them. The Stoics believe that our flaws didn't define us. They were opportunities for growth. In fact, the very thing we view as a weakness could be the gateway to our strength. Here's a reflective thought for you. What if, instead of judging ourselves for our flaws, we celebrated them as a sign of effort? After all, every time we work on improving ourselves, we become more resilient and adaptable. And that's something no one can take away from us. As you look at your own flaws, think about how they've shaped you. What lessons have you learned from them? How have they helped you grow into the person you are today? It's time to embrace your imperfections, not as weaknesses, but as the foundations for growth. Every flaw, every mistake is a chance to become better. The Stoics were masters at this, seeing each imperfection as an opportunity to develop virtues like patience, resilience, and humility. So the next time you find yourself frustrated with your flaws, remember this. Your imperfections are not the enemy. They are the raw material for your transformation. Embrace them and let them help you build the strongest version of yourself. 4. Free yourself from other people's expectations. We've all been there, right? That moment when you realize you've been living up to someone else's expectations, trying to meet a standard that was never truly yours to begin with. Maybe it's your parents, your friends, or even that perfect image of yourself that you feel you're supposed to live up to. But here's the thing. The Stoics would say this is the perfect recipe for dissatisfaction. They understood that when you tie your happiness to the approval of others, you'll always be chasing something that's just out of reach. So what does it really mean to free yourself from others' expectations? The first step is understanding that you are not responsible for how others perceive you. This may sound liberating, but it's also a bit frightening, right? After all, we've been conditioned to think that the opinions of others matter more than our own. But think about it. If you're constantly living in the shadow of someone else's expectations, how can you ever truly discover who you are? What if, instead of striving to meet the unrealistic standards set by others, you simply embraced your own path? Take a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you did something solely for yourself, without worrying about how others would judge you? Think about that. The Stoics were masters at this. They didn't care about society's standards, they cared about what was right and true. Marcus Aurelius, for example, spent his days leading an empire, yet he didn't allow the pressure to conform to societal expectations to dictate his actions. He stayed true to himself, and that's exactly what allowed him to lead with integrity. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds nice, but it's not that easy. And you're right, it's not. Breaking free from the expectations of others takes work. It requires an understanding that not everyone will approve your choices, and that's okay. The Stoics had a saying, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. In other words, it's our reaction to other people's expectations that cause us distress. So how do we change that? We start by adjusting our mindset. Instead of constantly seeking approval, we begin by asking, what do I truly value? This brings us to another essential Stoic principle. Focus on what you can control. You can't control how others see you, but you can control your actions, your mindset, and your response to their expectations. It's about cultivating an internal compass that guides you, rather than being swayed by the winds of external judgment. Imagine for a moment if you stopped worrying about what people thought. How much more energy would you have for the things that truly matter to you? Here's where things get interesting. Stoicism isn't about being cold and indifferent. It's about being in control. When you stop relying on external validation, you free up emotional energy to focus on what you can change. It's about building resilience so you can face the world without needing everyone's approval. So why not try it? The next time you feel the pressure to live up to someone else's expectations, take a deep breath, smile, and remind yourself, you are enough. But let's have a little fun with this. Have you ever caught yourself going along with something just to avoid the "what will they think" moment? Maybe you've agreed to something you really didn't want to do just to fit in. Or maybe you've held yourself back from chasing your dreams, afraid of being judged. What if, just once, you let go of that fear? Wouldn't it be freeing to make decisions based on your own values, not someone else's? Remember, the Stoics weren't about avoiding society. They just didn't let society define their worth. Your worth is defined by your actions, not by how others perceive you. So the next time you feel that nagging voice telling you to meet someone's expectations, ask yourself, is this truly my path, or am I just trying to fit into someone else's mold? When we choose to let go of the need for approval, we start living more authentically. We begin to trust ourselves and embrace our individuality. And that, according to Stoic philosophy, is the ultimate form of freedom. So if you ever find yourself bending under the weight of others' expectations, remember, your peace comes from within, not from outside approval. As you navigate your journey, ask yourself, are you living for yourself, or are you living for others? This simple question can guide you toward a more fulfilling and authentic life. 5. Enjoy your solitude. Let's face it, How many of us actually enjoy being alone? In a world where we're constantly plugged into our phones, chatting with friends, and scrolling through social media, solitude can feel like a rare commodity. But what if I told you that the Stoics believed embracing solitude could be one of the most powerful things you can do for your mental and emotional well-being? Sounds strange, right? After all, doesn't being alone mean you're missing out on all the fun? Well, the Stoics might say that you're missing out on something far more valuable, your own inner peace. Let's take a moment to think about this. When was the last time you were truly alone without any distractions or noise? I'm not talking about being alone while watching TV or checking emails. I mean real, honest solitude where your mind is free to wander, think, and reflect. Sounds a bit terrifying, doesn't it? But what if solitude wasn't something to fear, but something to embrace? The Stoic philosophers, men like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, knew the importance of solitude. In fact, they practiced it regularly. They understood that being alone didn't have to mean loneliness. Instead, it was a chance to connect with themselves, to reflect on their lives, and to practice gratitude for the things they had. It was a space where they could get clear on their values, make better decisions, and recharge mentally. Think about it. When was the last time you had a moment of quiet without the buzz of the outside world telling you what to do, how to think, or what you should want? So why is solitude so important? For one thing, it allows you to reconnect with your true self. We live in a world where it's easy to get caught up in the opinions of others and to be influenced by external pressures. But when we're alone, there's no one to impress, no one to judge. It's just you and your thoughts. And when you start to get comfortable in that space, you'll realize something powerful. You don't need anyone's approval to be at peace with yourself. But here's the kicker. Being alone doesn't have to be depressing. It's actually an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. Instead of seeing solitude as a void or a sign of loneliness, what if you started seeing it as a chance to nurture your own thoughts? Instead of feeling like you should be surrounded by people, why not ask yourself, what can I learn from being by myself? You might discover that the moments you spend alone are some of your most productive, creative, and rejuvenating. This is where the Stoic idea of self-sufficiency comes into play. Stoics believe that we should be able to find contentment within ourselves without relying on external circumstances. Why do we often think that we need to be constantly surrounded by others to feel fulfilled? The truth is, when you rely on others to provide your happiness, you give away your power. Solitude is the perfect time to reclaim that power and practice being content with your own company. Now let's be honest for a second. How often do we run away from silence or time alone? We fill our lives with noise and distractions to avoid confronting our own thoughts. It's easy to do, right? But here's the twist. The Stoics knew that the most profound insights come from the quiet moments. When there's no one else around to influence you, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. You can ask yourself tough questions like, am I living authentically? Or what really matters to me? These aren't questions you can always answer in a crowd, but in solitude, you have the space to reflect and grow. So how do you practice this? It's simpler than it sounds. Start by carving out time for yourself, whether it's a quiet walk, a moment of meditation, or even sitting alone with a cup of tea. The key is to be present in that moment and to enjoy it. Instead of focusing on the emptiness of being alone, focus on the opportunity it presents. Imagine if you started to see solitude as a tool, not a punishment. Imagine using that time to think, to breathe, to read, or simply to be. You'd probably find that not only is solitude enriching, but it's also refreshing. So the next time you're faced with a few hours of alone time, don't reach for your phone or schedule something to fill the space. Embrace it. Ask yourself, what do I really need at this moment? In the end, the Stoics taught us that solitude is not something to fear, but something to appreciate. It's an opportunity to reconnect with who you truly are, to reflect on your life, and to find inner peace. So go ahead, reward yourself with some alone time. It might just be the best gift you can give yourself. 6. Create healthy boundaries in relationships. Let's be honest, relationships can be messy. Whether it's with family, friends, or even colleagues, boundaries often get blurred, and before you know it, you're feeling drained, overwhelmed, and maybe even a little resentful. So why does this happen? How is it that we end up in situations where we give so much of ourselves to others that we forget to take care of ourselves? The Stoics had a simple answer: boundaries, and it turns out they were onto something. The key to maintaining healthy relationships lies in establishing clear and firm boundaries. But what exactly are boundaries? In simple terms, boundaries are like invisible lines that protect your time, energy, and emotions from being overrun by others. Think of them as the personal space bubble we all carry around, but instead of just physical space, they cover your emotional and mental well-being too. Without boundaries, it's easy for others to take advantage of you or for your needs to go unheard and unmet. The Stoics believed that to live a good life, one must have control over what they can and let go of what they cannot. This is where the concept of boundaries becomes powerful. Have you ever found yourself agreeing to something you didn't want to do, just to avoid conflict? Or maybe you've stayed in a toxic relationship because you weren't sure how to set boundaries without feeling guilty? The Stoics would say, stop it. Seriously, the best way to maintain your peace and emotional health is by learning how to establish boundaries that protect you from being overwhelmed or manipulated by others. Imagine if, instead of always saying yes to every request, you started saying no when something doesn't align with your values or energy. Seems simple enough, right? Yet, it's one of the hardest things to do. We fear letting others down, disappointing them, or, worse, being seen as selfish. But here's the thing, setting boundaries is not selfish, it's self-care. When you don't protect your energy and emotions, you end up feeling burnt out, resentful, and disconnected from your true self. The Stoics were experts at setting boundaries, but not in the way you might think. They weren't rude or dismissive. Instead, they were clear, direct, and calm. They understood that their happiness wasn't dependent on the approval of others. And that's a powerful mindset to adopt. What if we all took a page from their book and started practicing clear communication? Instead of tiptoeing around people's feelings, we could set boundaries that honor our own needs while respecting others. One of the most important aspects of setting healthy boundaries is being consistent. Think about it. How often have you let a small issue slide, only for it to become a bigger problem later? Maybe a friend constantly cancels plans at the last minute, or a colleague always expects you to take on extra work without offering help in return. At first, it might seem like no big deal, but over time, this inconsistency erodes trust and creates frustration. Consistency is key to establishing and maintaining boundaries that others can respect. If you let things slide, people will think it's okay to push your limits. But if you stand firm, they'll understand your boundaries and will likely respect them. But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. You might feel guilty or worry that you're being too harsh. Can you relate to that feeling? Well, it's important to remember that your needs matter too. The Stoics believed in living a life of virtue and self-respect, and that includes treating yourself with the same care you show others. By setting clear boundaries, you are affirming your self-worth and showing the world that you value yourself. To make this practical, start small. If you're someone who has trouble saying no, begin by practicing it in low-stakes situations. Maybe it's declining an invitation you don't want to accept or telling someone you need alone time. Over time, you'll get better at it, and your confidence in maintaining your boundaries will grow. The Stoics didn't just teach us how to set boundaries. They also emphasized the importance of knowing when to let go. Sometimes the best boundary is simply walking away from a toxic situation or relationship. Whether it's cutting ties with someone who doesn't respect your boundaries, or distancing yourself from an environment that drains you, there's power in knowing when it's time to let go. And remember, it's not about being harsh, it's about protecting your peace. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where your boundaries are being tested, ask yourself, what would a Stoic do? Chances are, they'd communicate clearly, protect their time and energy, and remain calm and composed in the face of pressure. By practicing these principles, you can create healthy relationships that allow you to thrive, rather than drain you. So, as we wrap things up, remember, the Stoics didn't seek a life of luxury, but a life of virtue and inner peace. They understood that happiness isn't found in external approval, but in mastering ourselves. Setting healthy boundaries, embracing solitude, and letting go of others' expectations are the keys to living a more fulfilling life. By doing so, you can free yourself from unnecessary stress and focus on what truly matters, your own growth and peace of mind. Now, here's a thought to leave you with. What would happen if you stopped worrying about what others think and focused on becoming the best version of yourself? Imagine how much more at peace you would be. If this video resonated with you, be sure to like and subscribe to the Stoic Narratives official channel for more content like this. Take control of your own happiness, because in the end, that's the only thing that truly belongs to you.